Okay, well, my first slide isn't working, so I'll just do it like this. Sorry about that, technical difficulties for whatever reason. My name is Haley Gibson. Um, Today I want to talk to you a little bit about how to overcome constipation. Constipation is something that I've struggled with myself, so this is very personal to me, and I want to share with you how I overcame it, some strategies that I use, as well as helping you dig deeper to find what is causing your constipation. It's very uncomfortable. I could go a week at a time without going to the bathroom, and my midsection, my stomach would swell up, and I would feel like I looked pregnant. And it was just a terrible feeling. It's uncomfortable. You don't want to go out in public. You don't want to wear clothes that fit you. Not to mention, you get a headache because of all the toxic waste building up in your system. It's a terrible thing. So I just want to help you understand how you can overcome constipation. I'm also finding that it's very common with a lot of the clients that I work with. So today I just want to give you 12 strategies in particular to overcome it. So when waste sits or moves very slowly throughout our digestive tract, it gets fermented by microbes and becomes literally a breeding ground for all kinds of nasty microbial species. These species then release all kinds of toxins that create a stress response in our body, which increases whole body inflammation levels. If you are struggling with constipation, then take it seriously. It is your body's way of telling you something that is reduce inflammation and adapt to the stressors of life successfully. So, a little bit about myself before we continue. Like I said, my name is Haley. I'm a registered nurse and functional nutritionist. I work with clients from all over the world to help them overcome their barriers naturally. So we work with clients with all sorts of things from autoimmune diseases, cancer patients, digestive tract issues, infections, viruses, heart disease, cholesterol issues, diabetes, all sorts of things under the sun. So this is just a little bit about my personal life. This is my family, my fiance's family over here on the left side. Lots of great people that surround us with love. To the right, you can see myself with a group of people from the Kennesaw Mountain Challenge, which is a free event we do every Monday. If anyone's in the Kennesaw area, I invite you to come out with us. It's free. It's every Monday, starting April 3rd this year. Once the sun is in that perfect position for us to have some sunlight later in the day, it actually starts at 6:30. I hope you can make it. Down below that, you can see Rebel, our dog, and I just absolutely love him. He brings a lot of joy to my life. So let's get started. The signs of constipation include abdominal pain, protrusion of the lower gut. Like I said, I felt really swollen and bloated. Poor appetite. If you find that you don't even feel like eating, it's that weird, I'm hungry, but I'm not because everything is just sitting in my bowels kind of thing. Headache, even dizziness can be a sign of constipation. So this problem can significantly impact the quality of life for all ages, and it actually affects about 20% of the population that we are aware of. It has been defined as having less than 3 bowel movements a day. I will just go ahead and say that this is very rare to achieve. So if you're not going 3 times a day, don't be so hard on yourself. But this is what the definition is that we go by, is that if you're having less than 3 bowel movements a day, this is considered constipated. I like to go more so by what it looks like. So we'll talk about that in a second. Going once or twice a day is definitely crucial for health. If you're going multiple days or even just one day in between, this can impact your health. So this is the Bristol stool scale that we like to go by. So the top 2, type 1 and type 2, those would be signs of constipation. You have separate hard lumps, little pebbles. The ones that are just like really hard and dry, this would be considered some type of constipation going on. We really want our stool to look like types 3 and 4. So they're more like a sausage or a snake. Some cracks are okay. It shouldn't be runny either. Once we start to get into, you see down here, it calls it soft blobs with clear-cut edges, or if it's fluffy, or if it's just watery, this is when we consider it diarrhea. So type 3 and type 4 are optimal what your stool should look like. This scale is used to relate colonic transit time, which tells us the time that it takes for stool to pass through the colon. So according to this scale, we just kind of talked about which types are the best. Healthy digestion is reflective of normal stool that is brown in color, does not have visible food remnants. If you see visible food, then you may not have good stomach acid actually digesting all of your food. It should also be smooth, soft, and snake-like in appearance. Individuals struggling with constipation will have stool that is hard and difficult to pass. Stool that is formed but still lumpy is also associated with constipation. So that's what it should look like. So I just wanted to help you start to ask questions about your lifestyle and diet, and even your history that would contribute to constipation. For myself, I was raised eating foods with antibiotics, so this threw off my gut microbiome, but I think the biggest contributing factor was my history with bulimia. And bulimia decreases your stomach acid, so I had very poor stomach acid, and it also decreases your bowel transit time. It also gives you electrolyte imbalances. It throws off your hormones. So I had a lot of things contributing to my constipation. Not to mention, it runs in my family. They've all struggled with it. So I was kind of predisposed to getting it anyway. So the fact that I have got my own digestive system back up and working properly speaks a lot for nutrition and the strategies I'm about to talk about. So number one I want to talk about is intestinal dysbiosis. So if you have bad gut bacteria present, this can actually slow your transit time. You need good bacteria for digestion and movement to promote that peristalsis, which is the contraction of your intestines that move the feces along your intestinal tract so that you are detoxing appropriately. Ways that you can have gut dysbiosis going on, antibiotics is a big one. If you have decreased stomach acid due to a lot of stress in your life, or high sugar diet, high carb diet, food additives, pesticides, all sorts of things can throw off our balance in our gut lining. A lack of healthy bacteria can also contribute to this. So this is always a starter point for me, is what does your gut microbiome look like? There's a lot of ways we can figure that out together. So anyway, number two I want to talk about is dietary fiber. Fiber is absolutely essential for the fermentation process from healthy bacteria to actually promote peristalsis. So we want good levels of lactobacillus, bifidobacterium, and other bacteroids in order to ferment our fiber and move these things along the system. So a lack of adequate fiber in an individual's diet can cause a significant reduction in the bulk of stool, which results in difficulty to have a bowel movement. Another contributing factor to stool weight are the gases produced during bacterial fermentation. So hydrogen, carbon dioxide, and methane, these are the three primary gases which increase the size of stool and quicken the transit time of stool through the colon. So this is going to come from a good, healthy diet. Okay. So number three, I want to talk about food sensitivities. Food sensitivities are often affected by an altered gut microbiome, or if you have widening gap junctions in your intestinal lining. So any impairment in your intestinal lining can result in food sensitivities. So if a food sensitivity is suspected, you can have these sorts of things pop up that are listed here on this slide. So fatigue, cravings, dark circle under the eye, candida, water retention, nasal congestion, muscle aches, joint pain, depression. All of these things can be a result from an impaired intestinal lining and the resulting food sensitivities. So it's absolutely so important that we restore the intestinal microbial balance to reduce the occurrences of constipation. Some of the most common foods you should consider eliminating include gluten, soy, corn, peanuts, and pasteurized dairy. Other foods may be triggers of your intolerance, processed foods, alcohol, these definitely increase inflammatory disturbances in the gut. So I just advise taking these things out for 30 days and seeing how you do. Now, while you're doing this, you also need to focus on rebuilding the gut lining, which we will talk more about. I'm not ready to move forward yet. So another one is SIBO. We kind of talked about a bad gut microbiome earlier. So there's a little bit of a difference between having pathogens present, bad bacteria, versus intestinal bacterial overgrowth. They can be interrelated. So if you have pathogens overgrowing, you would still have small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, but you can also have bacterial overgrowth from healthy bacteria. So this is when a lot of times what will happen is an unhealthy diet or malfunction in the ileocecal valve sphincter that will malfunction, and it will result in a valve being left open, which means that bacteria can migrate up through the valve from the large intestine up into the small intestine, which it should not normally be able to do, and it will migrate up closer to the stomach and ferment food before it is ready. And we will have an overgrowth. Bacteria proliferate like crazy, and if they're in the wrong area, this can result in things such as constipation and gas and bloating. So that's where SIBO comes into play. If we have an unhealthy pathogen, we'll also need to reset that as well. Another cause is sleep. So adequate sleep is absolutely essential for behavioral, physiological, psychological, and physical health. Restricting sleep is associated with hormonal dysfunction, inflammation, lowered immunity, metabolic complications, just overall reduced quality of life. So please get to sleep, people. These factors increase stress and are also associated with symptoms such as weight gain. Sleep is a critical time the body is able to repair itself, and is also a period that the digestive system is given to relax. Sleep experts recommend 7 to 8 hours of sleep per night. I recommend you try to get in bed as close to 10 o'clock as possible, if not earlier. And the ideal time where you get the most restorative sleep is going to be from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. So try to start winding down by 9 and get yourself ready for good sleep. So stress is another big factor. So when we have a stress response, we have a fight or flight reaction, and this elicits a cortisol response. So cortisol is going to result in water retention and increased blood sugar. Both of these things are also going to contribute to constipation, because what happens is when we are faced with a stressor in our life, our bodies are going to take its resources and allocate them towards defense mechanisms. So we need a heightened sense of awareness. We're going to need blood sugar for energy. We're going to need our energy ready for running or fighting off that pathogen or whatever it may be. So if you have a food sensitivity, for instance, that is actually going to elicit a stress response. It's the same stress response as if you were being attacked by a bear. Granted, if you're being attacked by a bear, that stress response is going to be a lot stronger. That is very stressful. So there is a variation in the degree to which this will happen, but cortisol being released chronically over a long period of time is going to promote water retention and result in constipation. The relaxant magnesium also becomes depleted due to stress, which magnesium is so crucial for promoting bowel motility. Oops, sorry about that. Magnesium is very important for promoting bowel motility. Furthermore, the secretion of inflammatory chemicals like cortisol and histamine are released from the vagus nerve in the brain and gut, weakening immunity and slowing digestion. So this is all very important to consider. All right, so water. Water is huge. If you're not drinking enough water, you're definitely going to have issues with constipation. So water is required to help maintain electrolyte balance and to provide the support for indigestible fiber by adding bulk to the stool for easy passage. Water secretion aids in intestinal motility by lubricating the stool during contractions for easy movement of waste into and out of the colon. So I do recommend most people to shoot for a gallon a day. Now, if you have heart failure, or kidney disease, this is something you should talk to your healthcare provider about. But for most people, shooting for a gallon a day is safe and recommended. At least go for 80 ounces of water a day. All right, so sodium, magnesium, and phosphorus. This is another cause of constipation. A specific concentration is required to provide the healthy function of nerves and muscles in the colon. So if sodium, magnesium, and phosphorus are out of whack, this can result in constipation because these electrolytes aid in muscle contraction to move stool through the bowels and support nutrient absorption. So very critical that we have our electrolytes in check as well. So you may have skipped out on reading the side effects and warning labels, but the medications you are taking can actually produce side effects of constipation. Medications influence gut health and can disrupt the healthy concentration of gut bacteria. The gut also contains receptors for many painkillers like ibuprofen and aspirin, which bind to these compounds and interfere with motility. Other medications act as diuretics and increase the likelihood of hard-to-pass stool. So if you're having constipation and you're on some of these medications, as you can see, there's a long list here, you can discuss this problem with your prescribing physician to determine if these drugs are to blame and if there's something else that you can do to help the process. Other contributing factors, number 10, chronic conditions, so irritable bowel syndrome, hypothyroidism. If you have slow metabolism related to hypothyroidism, this can definitely lead to constipation, inflammatory bowel disease, and leaky gut syndrome. All of these things can disrupt nerve flow and hormones, which lead to anxiety, and this leads to constipation as well. When we have anxiety, we're having a stress response. So this leads to the cortisol, and it's just a vicious cycle that keeps going. All right? So some research indicates that individuals who experience constipation have a higher concentration of methane gas than healthier individuals. Patients with constipation exhibit the excessive production of methane gas by bacteria in the gut microbiome, and this results in a slower transit time for stool to pass through the colon. Individuals with constipation-related irritable bowel syndrome were detected to have higher methane production. So in a case study, researchers found that the treatment of methane-producing bacteria given using antibiotics significantly improved stool frequency from less than 3 times per week to 1 time per day. Other studies have shown that the infusion of methane gas in animal studies resulted in the slowed rate of gut motility. So all mechanisms by which excess methane gas slows gut motility is unclear, but it may be associated with a reduction in serotonin production along with abnormal intestinal motility. I thought those studies were pretty cool, and I just wanted to share them with you. So this just shows you some of mainstream medicine's idea of giving you a laxative in order to stimulate a bowel movement. So let's talk about bulk forming. So you have benefiber gel. I can't even say that word, aspagula husk. So these are laxatives. They add volume to your stool by absorbing water, which makes it easier for your bowels to move waste through your colon to create a soft stool. Side effects, gas, bloating, abdominal cramps, or constipation if not taken with water. So you absolutely have to drink water with these. My only issue with these is they're not addressing why you're constipated. So if you're taking one of these, I do advise you to just dig a little bit deeper and see what else you could do. So as far as surfactants go, the osmotics, these laxatives, let's talk about osmotics first. Milk of magnesia, Miralax. So these don't necessarily add bulk to your stool, but what they do is they're osmotically active. And what that means, for instance, we'll talk about sodium. Sodium is something that water follows. It has a positive charge and water just follows it. So whenever water follows something that is osmotically active, this is going to result in an easier stool to pass. It's going to soften it. It absorbs water by doing this, essentially is what that means. So the problem with these is that you can absolutely become dependent on these. And once again, it is not addressing the root cause of why you were constipated to begin with. Stimulants, especially, you can become dependent on. One of the side effects over here, you can see lazy bowel, which leads to further constipation if you're taking this long term. So this works by irritating the colon muscles to make a bowel movement. So this isn't necessarily the safest thing to do. If you're in a hospital, you just had surgery, and you need to wake things up, then sure, okay, that's understandable. But if you're at home, I advise you to dig deep and try these other strategies before going to things like Miralax or Dulcolax to use, trust me. So bulking agents are typically first recommended to patients for the treatment of constipation. Unfortunately, most people consume over-the-counter stimulant laxatives such as the Dulcolax, Senecot, and X-Lax. Like I said, overuse of these can pose the risk of upsetting the normal biological function and result in lazy bowel syndrome. The notion that laxatives can interfere with the absorption of calories and keep you from gaining weight is actually false, and it's also quite dangerous. The overuse of laxatives is associated with dangerous side effects like weight loss and then eventually weight gain, because your body is smarter than that. It will retain everything if you abuse your body like this. You'll struggle with constipation and diarrhea because your bowels won't work without it. Irritable bowel syndrome, reduction of digestive enzymes, electrolyte imbalance. If you are having diarrhea, you are ridding the body of electrolytes without fully absorbing them. Cardiovascular problems can result because of the electrolyte imbalance. If you feel faint or dizzy, dehydration can result from diarrhea. Water retention, whenever you have diarrhea, our bodies respond by retaining water. pH balance can be thrown off, damage or infection to the digestive system. Colon cancer is possible. There are severe cases where death has happened due to the dehydration and electrolyte imbalances. So once laxative use is ended, it is common for individuals to experience gastrointestinal discomfort. Laxatives, which stimulate the muscles in the intestines to contract, can actually weaken the natural involuntary ability of these muscles to function on their own. So, yeah, that's pretty much laxatives and how they work. So let's talk about probiotics. Probiotics are going to be those healthy bacteria that we put into our system that aid in digestion. They're going to break down our foods. They contribute to the enzymes that you need to actually use these nutrients. So let's talk about B6, for instance. Let's say that you're consuming a diet high in B6, but you're still having issues converting it. Well, B6 plays a large role in the production of serotonin, dopamine, and GABA. So who knows what those three are? They're very important neurotransmitters that are involved in sleep, appetite, your motivation, your drive to do things, your productiveness. So if we're lacking B6 due to not having the correct microbiome, good healthy microflora in our gut, then we're not going to make these neurotransmitters efficiently, meaning we could result in a deficiency. So if we have a deficiency in those, we're going to have weird cravings, weird sleep patterns, just difficulty getting up and getting ready to go in the morning, having a drive and motivation about you. So this is very important. And probiotics, they're so great for helping us microbiome and get our bowels moving. So let's talk about 12 ways to overcome constipation. We'll leave it here. So let's increase our fat intake. Healthy fats are going to improve hormone function and gut motility. The key here is the right kinds of fats. I'm not telling you to go eat a bunch of bacon. This is like eating avocado and coconut oil, coconut milk, canned fat, coconut milk, olives, olive oil, things such as this. So one clinical study showed that consuming a high-fat diet for only 3 days decreased the time frame for which food remained in the stomach. If you're eating fat, you're also going to stimulate bile production, which is going to stimulate bowel contraction. This study also indicated that cardiovascular health also improved following a high-fat diet, indicating that fat is essential to the overall function of the human body. So I just want to point out here that if you're eating a high-fat diet, in order to fully absorb the benefits of this high-fat diet, you truly need good doses of lactobacillus. Lactobacillus can be found in your probiotics. Just check, we use something called ProBioCharge at drjockers.com. There's 30 billion and 100 billion. I typically have people start on 30 and then transgress into 100 billion. All right. So another great thing to use, once you start eating a higher fat diet from real whole food, and you cut out all the processed stuff, you actually become deficient in sodium. So research supports that you should be consuming 1.5 to 3.5 teaspoons of salt per day. You can consume some of the salt you need from natural sources like beets, carrots, spinach, turnips, fish, things such as that, sea vegetables like kelp. And you can also use pink Himalayan sea salt throughout the day. So there's a big difference between common salt and pink Himalayan sea salt. You can kind of see the comparison here, but essentially the difference is that pink Himalayan sea salt contains all of the minerals and nutrients that salt used to contain. Common table salt has been processed to the point where it is actually inflammatory and it does not contain the same minerals and nutrients that it once did. So it is overly processed. Unfortunately, it's cheap. It's really convenient to get, but it's just not giving any nutrition to our bodies. So pink Himalayan sea salt is the way to go with that. Another big thing we need to do is hydrate. We talked about this earlier. So one thing you can do for immediate relief of constipation, try drinking 4 ounces of water with 2 teaspoons of pink salt mixed in. This is called Sole, S-O-L-E. Drink the Sole. It will make you gag a little bit. It's not tasty. And then follow it up with 8 ounces of water and then slowly sip water for the next 15 minutes. The salt water will create an osmotic pressure. We talked about this earlier. Water follows salt. It will draw water into your colon and flush out the waste. So you will have major urges to go and possibly wet stools. This technique acts like giving yourself an oral enema. It's not something I suggest to do often. This is an emergency type situation. Like you haven't gone in 4 days and you need something. So one thing I find really helpful if I haven't had a bowel movement like normal, so one thing I'll do is wake up in the morning and I'll get 32 ounces of water. 16 of it I'll make tea out of. I'll make herbal tea. Oolong's my favorite. And I'll just add like 1 teaspoon of coconut oil and then a little bit of powdered ginger to that. Have warm tea, some water. I drink this, and that typically gets me going first thing in the morning. And I advise you to hold off on eating for a little bit if you are having trouble with constipation. First thing in the morning, make sure you're super hydrating your system and not going straight to eating. You need lots of water to get things moving. All right. Next thing, so we want to also improve stomach acid. Aloe vera has actually been used as a natural laxative treatment as well. So just 8 ounces of aloe vera. This is a really great way to stimulate bowel contraction. Part of its laxative effect is a result of the anthraquinones found in aloe. So this actually enhances intestinal hydration and increases intestinal peristalsis. So just 8 ounces of aloe vera a day is a great way to go. Just make sure it's organic and unsweetened. Stomach acid, like I was saying, stomach acid is really important for getting things going as well. This is the major part of how our stomach digests food. So if we have too low stomach acid, this results in poor digestion, results in nutritional deficiencies, and this just results in a cycle and constipation as well. So what we want to do to help this, you can take apple cider vinegar with every meal. 1 tablespoon and 4 ounces of water before every meal is a great way to increase that stomach acid. If you notice that this starts to burn whenever you're doing it, back off. You probably have fine stomach acid. I would advise you talk to your healthcare provider about it. If you're doing apple cider vinegar and it's burning, a little bit deeper of an assessment is required there. So I would advise talking to your healthcare provider. Alrighty. Next, fermented foods. So fermented foods are really great for improving digestion. We kind of talked about this earlier. If we have the good bacteria, we're giving ourselves what we need to start digesting our foods appropriately and moving things along the intestinal tract. So kimchi, sauerkraut, any type of fermented vegetable, just always be aware of food additives and preservatives in these. It's best to make your own at home. You can also use coconut water kefir. Kavita is a great brand. I like lemon ginger. I also like the cayenne, and then there's a coconut mint that is delicious. So all three of those are great to use. Another thing that's great is seeds, like pumpkin, chia, flax seeds. All of these are great sources of fiber to add into the diet. So combined with an increased water intake, chia seeds swell and form a gelatinous substance, which easily moves through the digestive tract. Flax seeds exhibit much of the same laxative activity like chia seeds do, and they can be easily added, into your foods. Super easy. Seeds like pumpkin, they're also some of the most nutrient-dense food sources and contain minerals that promote digestion. So you can snack on these like flax crackers and sprouted pumpkin seeds, things like that. Using a pea protein powder can also be a great strategy to improve bowel motility. I've had a lot of success with our gut healing protein powder, not just with myself, but with a lot of clients as well. There's different flavors you can try, but this is definitely something. So I would start out in the morning and do the water, the tea, the coconut oil, the ginger, and then I would progress into having a gut healing protein shake. And this always got me moving. I mean, to me, this is just genius. Another thing that you can do is a green juice. So get some green juice, and what you want to do is make sure you're adding about an inch or two of ginger. And you can do cucumber, Swiss chard, radish, lemon. Lemon is really good in it, things like that. Now, this isn't going to be the most tasty, but if you're constipated, this is a great way to wake those bowels up and get them moving. Ginger is a huge stimulatory. It has a big stimulatory effect on the bowels, and it's natural. It's a root found in nature. You can buy it at your local grocery store. So bone broth is a rich source of anti-inflammatory nutrients containing collagen, chondroitin, sulfate, gelatin, calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, potassium, and amino acids. Bones contain a gelatinous material and the raw nutrients required to sustain digestive system function and healing. Bone broth is especially critical for individuals with gut disorders like leaky gut because it is effective in killing the overgrowth of bacteria and parasites that can invade the gut lining. So huge. Bone broth is wonderful. What we do for people who have severe digestive issues, we actually start them on a bone broth fast. It can last anywhere from 3 to 5 days. I've even had some people do 10. I don't recommend that unless you're working very closely with someone, but 3 to 5 days is typically what we do. And we'll add ghee and pink Himalayan sea salt, MCT oil, and herbal teas to this to get them through that fast for energy. Very effective. Magnesium, brain calm magnesium is wonderful. I like to take this right before bed. I was taking 2 scoops, 1 is fine now, but you take this right before bed with some water, and it helps promote motility overnight. It also relaxes you and helps you sleep better. And if you're sleeping better, your bowels are also going to restore and get things moving better. So brain calm magnesium, it tastes delicious. You can find this at drjockers.com. So signs you may be getting too much magnesium, in case you're worried about getting too much. This would include loose stool. So say you go from constipation to diarrhea from this. That would be an indicator that you have too much magnesium. Lightheadedness or leg cramping in conjunction with taking a high dose of magnesium, that could also be because of too much. Too early for that. So another one that is absolutely so important for getting the bowels to move. You got to move yourself. You have to get up and go walking. You can't sit in your desk all day and work so hard but not take care of your physical health. I recommend walking, 30 minutes to an hour a day. Put your Fitbit on. Strive for those 10,000 steps. Really try to get that every day. It's so important for your brain will become more productive. You'll have better energy. Your joints will feel better. Your bowels will work better. Your reproductive system will work better. Walking is so important. I also advise doing at least 15 minutes of high-intensity exercises at least 4 times a week. Get your body moving. This is huge for getting the bowels to move. Another thing I want to mention to you is an elimination diet. This is more of an advanced strategy, but an elimination diet is going to take out the most common food irritants so that you can rebuild your gut lining. So gluten, dairy, processed foods, corn, soy, sugar, alcohol, higher FODMAP foods, things like that, we would take out, and you would take this out for an extended amount of time, like 30 days, and then you would slowly add the foods back in and observe for changes. We also do a pulse test, which I've mentioned in other videos, to assess if we're having a stress response to this food. This is just, I thought this was cool. Our ancestors used to squat in the woods to go to the bathroom. I don't know if they really went to the woods, but they squatted. So if you think about the position that they were in, their knees were up above their hips. So this allowed their colon to become fully open, giving them, a better chance of having a bowel movement. It's just a better position. So when we're on the toilet, we're at 90 degrees. This is unnatural for going to the bathroom, and this only allows it to become partially open. So the way that we're sitting is also a strategy to help eliminate stool. So like I said before, my name is Haley. I'm a registered nurse and functional nutritionist. I work alongside Dr. David Jockers, and we help patients from all over the world overcome their health struggles. So if you're interested in working with us, you can reach out to me at nutrition@drjockers.com. We do advise advanced supplementation, coaching, lifestyle strategies, nutrition, all sorts of things. So if you have any questions, just shoot me an email. Thank you for listening.